Hello, welcome back. Today I'm just going to be chatting about basically the books that I read this year because I did not read a lot this year, but I will say the books that I did read were really good. I was just really judgmental this year, so I DNF'd a lot of different books and only read the books that I was really interested in. So even though it wasn't a whole bunch, it was still a really good year. So I'm just gonna do a recap because I can't even really do a top 10 because that would basically be all of the books that I read. So this is gonna be a recap of the books that I read this year, as well as what I plan on reading now that it is January. I mean, in a few hours it's gonna be January. So basically, let's get into it. The very first one is the Ember and Ashes series. So I actually read, well, I'm about to finish up the fourth book. The third book is somewhere, third and fourth book, they're somewhere around here. But they already started fireworks, it's too early. But anyways, I read the series and I really enjoyed it. There were some parts in it where I did want to choke some of the characters out, and you know, it's just, they were emotional, I was emotional, but to me that's also a hallmark of a really good book or just really good series in general, is when you actually start feeling some type of way about the characters. So I really enjoyed it. It was a long series, like the books progressively got bigger. So, but again, that was okay. I really enjoyed the world. I really enjoyed her writing style in general. It's just really good, and the characters were really well developed. So this is definitely a series that I liked. So I was afraid because I actually picked up the first book because it was recommended on TikTok, and I thought it was going to be a young adult. So I almost did not read it because I'm not really into young adult anymore now that I'm getting into my 30s. But I'm happy I did because it's not young adult and it's really good. So that's 4 books. So technically I'm already doing pretty well, right? Right, 4 books. And then I also for a minute really got into Romeo and Juliet retellings. So I just bought a whole bunch of different books that were Romeo and Juliet retellings. And this is one of them. This book is called Feather, and I did enjoy this book. I will say that I enjoyed the book. It's like a little mafia romance, and it was cute, and it didn't have a whole bunch of spice in it, but it had some spice scenes in it. And you know, it had the typical, like, you know, misunderstood bad boy, and the super good girl comes and like changes his whole world, and it turns out he's not a bad boy. That kind of trope. I will say I did not see the Romeo and Juliet retelling in here like at all. It was very loosely like put in there. Like if I would have never read in the synopsis that it's a modern Romeo and Juliet, I would have never even seen it. But it didn't ruin the book for me. Like, I still really liked it. I still enjoyed it. It was an easier read as well, so it wasn't anything like too complicated. I just liked it. And then it turns out that there's a second book already out for it, which I was not aware of, so I'm going to have to read that sooner than later. I read this book right here. Am I ashamed that I read it? A little bit. Do I regret reading it? A little bit. Would I read it again? Probably not. But did I enjoy reading it? I did. I'm not even gonna lie. So to me, this is basically like a giant like Wattpad, I don't know, story like put in a book. It was something else. It was something else, but it was a fun read. You know what it was? So you know how like people watch like Real Housewife shows and you don't expect anything like revolutionary from it. Like you're not, once you start watching it, you're like, okay, this is like trash TV, and you know, I enjoy it, but I also recognize that like I'm not gonna get any really deep life philosophical kind of value from it. Like You know, that's what this book was. This book is like a Real Housewives kind of dark fantasy romance thing, and this has trigger warnings galore. Like, it doesn't even stop. It's just from like page 3 going forward. So it's my trashy read. It was not the best. It's like this weird paradigm where it was not the best story in the world, but I'm absolutely happy that I read it, and I wouldn't recommend other people read it. But if somebody like picked it up in the bookstore, I wouldn't tell them don't pick it up either. It was just really weird. So I did read it. I did. But I will say something about this is that it did bring up a discussion it did bring up discussion in book talk and kink talk about consent and different types of kinks and different types of play. So there's that, you know, it drummed up some healthy conversation. So yeah, the next book I read is Ninth House. Again, this was one book that I thought was going to be YA, so I was hesitant to read it. It is not YA. It is, I don't know, maybe they just like tried to market it that way because YA still like has the publishing industry like in a chokehold. I don't know who said it. I don't know why they said that, but it's not. Very dark themes in it, but well written. Some of the characters were kind of like blending together. If you've read any other reviews about this, you've probably seen that that's the biggest complaint, is that after a while it's just like none of the characters really changed between each other, really, like they all seem like the same person, and I can see that. And some of the writing got a little bit not repetitive, but like, all right, we got it. But that being said, I still did enjoy this book. I did. So there's that. And then probably one of my favorite reads of the year is These Violent Delights. I think this is actually her debut novel, Chloe Gong. But this book was fantastic. Her story writing is like fantastic. It's poetic, the characters. This was another Romeo and Juliet retelling, and this is one of the books where I can definitely see the retelling in it. Like, if, you know, having read Romeo and Juliet, I can see Romeo and Juliet in this, and not just because of the names, but the actual, like, the family dynamic, how the characters interact with each other, the actual storyline. It's a great book, and it is, I don't know if it would be considered fantasy or not. I consider it low fantasy because it does have like a little bit some magical elements in it, but it's just so well written. Like, if you haven't read it yet, you need to. It's not young adult either. It's new adult. At least that's what I consider it. Some people call it young adult. They're lying. I consider it new adult just because some of the themes in there. But the way that she handled writing some of the characters, there's certain issues in there. I don't want to ruin anything. I don't want to what is it called, spoil anything, but there are certain characters in here that she represented, and she represented well. It wasn't like clickbaity, it wasn't like gross misrepresentation of it. It was really well written. Basically, if you like reading books, you need to be reading this. Like, it should have been on your shelf, it should have been read, and you need to read it now, because she has the second book out, and then I believe she actually has a spin-off of the characters in this book coming out in the fall of 2022. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure she does. I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. And then the last book that I read for the year was Sherrilyn Kenyon's Dead Men Walking. You will never hear me say anything bad about this woman. She is one of my favorite authors. She's written so many freaking books, and I've loved every single one of them. And then a lot of people complain. They're like, it's the same story, basically, just with different characters. I don't care. Argue with your mom about it. I love her stories. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Especially Archon, however you pronounce it. Whatever. I love that whole series. And yeah, so I picked this up, The Dead Man Walking. It's part of the Dead Man's Cross series, which is different because I'm used to the Dark Hunter series, which is my favorite, but This book was good. I loved it. Like I said, you'll never hear me say anything bad about this woman, okay? Okay, if you got complaints about her, keep it to yourself. So, those were all the books I read. That's all I read. And you know what? I'm okay with it because I enjoyed all of them. There's a couple of books that I DNF'd. I'll make a different video about that and post it in the comments or description or whatever so that you can see the books that I DNF'd. And then all of the books that I DNF'd, I put them, I'll never read again. It's just some of them I did not feel like reading at the time. So yeah. That being said, the books that I plan on reading in January coming up is, I just talked about Chloe's second book, To These Violent Delights. This is the second book, These Violent Ends. So I plan on reading this probably as soon as I finish up the fourth book in the Ember and the Ashes. This will probably be my next book that I read. Yeah, so I want to read this, and then there is another book. What is it? I'm forgetting the name of it, but basically I want, Feather. Feather, like how I mentioned, it has a second book. I do want to finish up the series and read that second book, especially since the third one is on pre-release now, because I have a bad habit of starting series and not finishing it. So I wanted to read the second book, To Feather, as well, but I don't have that yet. I wanted to read The Keeper of the Night as well in January, just because it sounds really, really good. So basically on the front it says death is her destiny, like, okay. And then the cover is beautiful, and yeah, I just want to read it because it sounds good. So I don't really have like anything in depth to say about that. Promises and Pomegranate. I want to read this because it's getting a lot of really good reviews on Book Talk, and which makes me hesitant because sometimes people hype up spice books and like the actual story itself is like atrocious and it just has really good spice books. But from what I hear, this is actually a really good book, and I'm not even gonna lie, I picked it up because of the cover. Pomegranates is one of my favorite fruit, and I just really like this color. So yeah, I'm one of those people that judges by a cover. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And then I'm going to try, if maybe try to get to the second book of The Savior's Champion. So the second book for that is The Savior's Sister, right? Yeah, so it's by one of a popular booktuber, and I enjoy the first book. I feel like some of y'all just hate her because, or don't like the story because she's a popular booktuber, and people tend to judge booktube authors like more harshly than they would otherwise. So I like the book, and again, y'all can argue with your mom about it. So I plan on hopefully getting to that second book in the series coming up in January. So that might be ambitious for me, okay, because I do have other stuff to do in January, but I do want 2022 to be a big year of reading for me, especially since I do plan on releasing my own book. I just feel like keeping myself well read makes me a better author as well. So drop your favorite books for the year 2021 in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.